Hello, you're listening to Talking Tales, the podcast. What you're about to hear is a live recording from the Talking Tales Storytelling Night. To find out more, visit www.stokescroftwriters.com. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Talking Tales on Tour. It's really exciting. We're outside of the city. So Talking Tales, for those of you, if you haven't come before, is put on by Stokescroft Writers, who you will see some of tonight, and we put it on every other month in Bristol, but we thought we'd come on tour and show our posh cousins what we're all about. So we bought the best of Bristol and kind of a bit outside talent. We've got representatives from each of the writing groups and also those of a more solitary nature who just write under the stairs, I imagine. So we've had a wash, we've dressed up, and we're ready to show you what we've got. So we're doing a podcast tonight that we do every time, and so that will be online afterwards. And we're also, if you were in the bar earlier, do the Finish the Lines competition. So if you haven't already filled one out, please fill one out in the break, because there is a once-in-a-lifetime incredible sell your grandma to get one, limited edition Talking Tales badge. There you go. Yes! It's pretty exciting. Okay, so that's enough for me. I'm going to pass you over to your incredible host, wherever he is, Mr. Thomas David Parker.
Shunned from the start. That's a good warm. Hello, everyone. All right. Oh, we're excited, aren't we? So for those who haven't been before, the format is I talk nonsense and then we bring people on who are much better and talented than me to tell funny and exciting stories. Our first performer tonight, I'm pleased to say, is actually a friend. She's someone who we really got to know each other last year when we both went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We both had our own shows. And it was very much a once-in-a-lifetime experience because neither of us are going back again. I actually got invited by Ellen to be involved in her final show. She wanted to be picked up and carried out, and I got so excited because she's such a great, talented person that I dropped her into a door, which every time her mother looks at me, I know she still hasn't forgiven. But Ellen has, and she's come here tonight to read her story, Small Talk Man. Can you give a huge response and huge applause for Ellen Waddell?
This is very tall. Thanks. Ever since I was a little boy, I've wanted to be a superhero, cleaning up the mean streets of the counties previously known as Avon, with my laser-sharp reflexes, laser-sharp wit, and laser-sharp laser eyes. But when I told the school's career counsellor, she laughed for 5 minutes and said I should consider a career as a novelist or fiction writer, which is a stupid thing for a careers advisor to suggest. But that didn't deter me or stop me telling everyone that one day I was going to be a superhero. When I was 18, my parents summoned me into the living room for a family conference. They said they were worried about my so-called obsession with those flying men in tights. They said I had no direction, and then they both started crying. So I told them they were a massive bag of dicks and to stop trying to crush my dreams. They just didn't get it. Being a superhero meant getting respect, something that had eluded me ever since the first day of school when I had turned up wearing odd socks. My mum claimed life was too short to match socks, but it wasn't too short for her to cut the crusts off my dad's sandwiches. What a bitch. But from that day on in, it was all, hey, odd socks boy, and why don't your socks match? Is it because you're poor and or gay? I made no friends and would regularly find socks ominously stapled to the front of my locker. After searching for superhero training courses online and drawing a blank, I decided I would just have to turn myself into a superhero. So I started by watching back-to-back episodes of My Hero, the Little Scene BBC One Waddell Hanlon TV series in which he plays a superhero. But all that did was make me incredibly sad and think, well, that's a shame. So I focused on building up a secret identity instead. You can't be a superhero if you don't have a good secret identity. I tried to do a Clark Kent and get a job as a journalist at my local newspaper, but sadly, due to the death of print journalism and my lack of qualifications or relevant experience, they declined to even take my CV, which simply said on it, has glasses, will date co-worker. So I decided to become a blogger instead, and as the best identity is one that allows you to blend into the crowd, I set up a blog called normalmanabouttownbeingnormal.wordpress.com. And I started blogging. My first post was called Nothing to See Here, where I posted updates about my dinner, moaned about public transport, and did a list of my top favourite episodes of Breaking Bad. I was an everyman. It was the perfect cover. Now I had my secret identity, the next step was a good origin story. One of the best origin stories belongs to Batman, an orphaned wealthy playboy. Tragically, my parents are still alive, and were both average-earning civil servants instead of rich philanthropists. So I decided in order to get the proper motivation needed to become a superhero, I would have to have them murdered by a local criminal. I spotted an old woman trying to steal dog food at my local Asda and asked her if she wouldn't mind brutally killing my parents. I promised I would make it worth her while, all the pedigree chum she could handle. She politely declined. So did the youth hanging around the skate park, and O.J. Simpson never wrote me back. So I moved on to Plan P instead. I invited my parents out for dinner, then took them down several dark alleys telling them it was a shortcut. But no one tried to mug us. I even took them past a well-known drug den while slyly exclaiming, "Gosh, mother, look at all your pearls." But sadly, no one killed them there either, and alas, I had to move on. I framed them for arson and had them committed to a mental asylum. Huzzah! I had my troubled backstory. Next, powers. To be a superhero, you have to know martial arts or have magical powers. I've never done martial arts, but I suspect I would be totally awesome at it, and maybe so awesome that I would accidentally kill people with my fists. And a very important rule of being a superhero is not to kill people. So I opted for superpowers instead, and that involved radiation. So my plan was simple: find some radiation and hang around in it until I became super strong or grew 6 dicks. You know, for the ladies. Now, an open source of radiation is surprisingly hard to find, and people tend to do their utmost to keep you away from it rather than encouraging you to go play in it. However, I heard phones contain radiation, so I stuck 16 phones down my pants, hoping the radiation would mutate my genitalia and bottom and enable me to call myself either Super Butt, Buttman, or the Wang. But nothing happened. Just the inevitable infertility. So I decided to follow Spider-Man's route and get a spider to bite me. I collected 10 spiders and slept in a bed with them, but I think I just ate them in my sleep. I annoyed a cat for a bit, and it scratched me, but I didn't detect any change in my reflexes or reaction to hoovers. So then I attempted to do a daredevil. I tied a black headband around my head, and I went for a walk, assuming my other senses would alert me to danger. Sadly, all I could hear were angry cries of, "Watch where you're going," and "Get out of the way of my car," and "How did you get into the crematorium?" But then it struck me. I was going about this all wrong. I was attempting to copy other pre-existing superheroes. I had to find my own way, create my own story, start afresh. And that's how I became Small Talk Man, a superhero able to rescue any awkward silence or fill any gap with dazzlingly inane conversation skills. Small Talk Man, fill silence with small talk blam. Bored in the post office? Wham! I appear and start talking to you about the weather and rising price of fish. Worried about those results in the doctor's waiting office? Shazam! Up I pop from under your chair and start discussing last night's episode of Coronation EastEnders Oaks Street Clothes. At the hairdresser's staring into the abyss that is your face. As the hairdresser prattles on about something you don't care about, whammo! I'm by your side with interesting opinions on immigration. Waiting for the kettle to boil in the office, kablooey! I pop out of the fridge and I ask you about your children. And so, Mr. Judge, I beg you to look kindly on me and not to put me in jail. Yes, I may have scared a few people, had my parents sectioned for a crime they didn't commit, broken into a few offices, and installed myself in the lift of a hotel for 7 months asking people intimate details about their holiday plans, but I had the best intentions, to make a difference in people's lives, to fill the silence of the world with vapid, pointless commentary. Also, if you do decide to put me away, you should know that is the perfect motivation for me to become a supervillain. Yes, I will become Banterman, a baddie able to turn any harmless conversation into a string of insults about your mum, your face, and your inability to please a lover. I hope you will consider my case. Hugs and kisses, Small Talk Man.
You tell a friend one childhood story in confidence. We're even now, Waddell. We're even now. For those who enjoyed that, which I think was everyone, Ellen's got a one-woman show this summer, which you have to pay for, which I feel is outrageous because I talk to her for an hour non-stop for free every time I see her. So, think about that. I've got it written down. I'm not going to memorize it. It's better to lie than to tell the truth and be alone in a ditch crying. Flows off the tongue. It's Tuesday, the 12th of July, at the Green Bank pub in Easton, Bristol, for £6. If you can't make that, then there's Wednesday, the 20th of July, at the Canvas Cafe in London, where it's £8 because it's London and fuck 'em. So that was Ellen. Can we have another applause for Ellen Waddell, please? That was great. So, our next act this evening is a man who needs no introduction because I haven't met him, so I don't have one. His name is John Holland, and he'll be reading his story Sunday morning.
This guy's so tall. This is a short, semi-autobiographical piece called Sunday Morning. My mother and father had sexual intercourse every Sunday morning at 9. As a teenager, I listened in bed to the steady rhythm of their lovemaking, with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. It reminded me of the slow night train from Keighley to Pudsey, its tempo unfaltering, almost hypnotic. Except, of course, that my parents didn't scream to a halt every 10 minutes to let more people on. My dad applied the same rhythm to all practical matters, digging the ground in the back garden, inflating the blow-up bed with a foot pump when camping, or chipping potatoes for tea. He was unhurried and purposeful, calm and steady, with the desired result fully in his grasp. It never occurred to me to enter into a conversation over Sunday breakfast about what I had heard. I bet that's given you an appetite, Mum. Or, is your physical love a manifestation of your emotional bond, dear parents? Or, has Dad always been a sex machine? No, it was not spoken of. After all, it was a private matter. Well, almost private. My own experience at the time was more clandestine. When a girlfriend stayed over on Saturday night, we would be given separate rooms. This being the 60s, the girl would expect me to share her bed at some point. If I was not forthcoming, she, as a Yorkshire girl, was entitled, under the Huddersfield Sexual Convention of 1963, to refer to me as old tired balls. Or on one occasion to describe me as being, and I quote here, more interested in your tropical fish than fellatio. When I was able to put my cichlids and sucking catfish to the back of my mind, the night time would find me bed hopping. And when the sun rose, my parents' 9 a.m. Sunday ritual provided a further opportunity for young love, as we knew we would not be caught at this time. One Sunday morning, as well as my girlfriend, my sister and a new husband stayed over. At 9 a.m., all three couples were at it simultaneously. I wondered if Bonnie and Ronnie, our Dutch rabbits, in the hutch by the back door, were also making love amongst the straw and droppings. And in the aquarium, in the lounge, were the tropical fish, the mollies, guppies and platies, flexing their gonopodia and partaking in their watery way. Was it possible that the neighbours would actually see our house rocking? I doubt that very much, because on this particular day, the house was rendered completely invisible by an emerging fog of serotonin, prolactin, and oxytocin which surrounded it. Such was the density that a cumulonimbus actually formed above the house, resulting in us having our own microclimate for the weekend. On that Sunday, it literally rained love.
it's always good when you hear a story and you go, oh, I can totally relate to that. That's fantastic. So very, very good. John is part of the Stroud Writers Group. They have a biannual meeting. The next one is at the Cheltenham Literature Festival in October, I believe. So, no? That's what you had on the sheet of paper you gave me? Stroud Short Stories is a twice-yearly event, podcast. The next one is at the Cheltenham Literature Festival in October. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Slick professional service here for you. Okay, so I'm just going to start reading aloud. I can't memorize anything. So our next act tonight is Juliet Hagen, and she'll be performing her story, Gwydion and the Greedy King. So Juliet, can we give a round of applause for Juliet, please?
Once upon a time, when the earth was young and magic was not to be doubted, there was a king who lived only for personal gain, and what he gained he strove to keep. He was loath to throw even away canned ends and cast-off clothes. His people, who depended for their livelihood on the generosity of their king, struggled and muttered amongst themselves. Their mutterings were carried on the wind, and eventually reached the ears of Gwydion, the magician, who frowned and thought. Now, when the festival of the harvest arrived, Gwydion travelled to the king's great hall disguised as a bard, for a bard, by custom, could not be turned away. Well, the feast was lavish, for the king's pride was nearly as great as his greed. The guests, high and low alike, enjoyed everything the fullness of the harvest and the ingenuity of the cooks could provide. And the meads, wine, cider and ale flowed. Gwydion was the best of the bards, and his songs were as sweet as honey and as powerful as the wine. Well, full as the dishes and the platters were, by midnight they were empty. Now Gwydion passed behind the king's chair, and he heard him say to himself, "Oh, how sad it is that all this bounty is now lost to me. I wish that I could have kept it forever." Gwydion's fingers danced. 3 drops of light fell on the king, and Gwydion left the hall. The next day, the king retired to his chamber of easement, but no ease came, nor on the following day. His belly swelled so that he could not buckle his breeches, and he was in much pain. Despite the best efforts of his apothecary, the king's bowels remained unmoved. At the end of the week, the king could barely stand. His belly was like a woman carrying triplets. He sent his messengers out, offering wealth to any who could give him rest, but none could. Then Gwydion, still dressed as a bard, returned and offered the king his services. Of course the king was short-tempered and demanded to know how would music help, until Gwydion threw back his hood and revealed himself. "Your trouble, Lord King, is a punishment for your greed. If you promise to atone, I will remove the spell," for a spell, of course it was. The king nodded his acceptance. 3 drops of light flew again onto the king's belly. The king felt movement and staggered at once to his chamber. He wept as relief came, and to this very day, a tear sometimes drips from the eye as we remember all things must pass.
Thank you very much, Juliet. Juliet's part of Bristol Fiction Writers. Yes. And you meet on the first Saturday of the month at Bristol Central Library. I wasn't reading that through the whole story. That's great. So, yeah, can we have another applause for Juliet, please? That's great. Okay, so should have memorised the next person. That would have been a good one. Okay, the next person is someone I know again, which is great. Kevlin Henney is part of the North Bristol Creators Writers Group, and he is also part of Bristol Flash Fiction. For those who don't know about Flash Fiction, it's 500 words or less. It's a very precise art, and I was very humbled to actually be asked by Kevlin to be involved this year, which was great because, you know, sort of it's all about telling a story very succinctly and avoiding waffle, because if you waffle and goes on, you can kind of lose your audience, because the ultimate thing is that it's quite short. Yeah, okay. Hey, we got there. Anyway, so without further ado, we will have Mr. Kevlin Henney reading his story, The 3 Moments of Defeat. Give a round of applause for Kevlin, everyone.
Doors should not be designed like that. It was unfortunate. Gina's head drooped. She sighed. She sighed defeat. It was a sound defeat, total and resounding. True defeat, complete defeat, has 3 parts, 3 movements, 3 moments. The first moment is requisite, the act that brings about defeat. The second moment is recognition, the awareness that defeat has moved from possibility to present to past. The third moment is resignation, acceptance of all that defeat brings and all that it takes. A day with William was never short. A time not even acknowledged by children's TV was 5:15, which was the second time the day had started. Gina filled the shortfall with supercharged coffee and slapstick breakfast. One clean-up operation later, the TV was on and filled with the carefree smiles of childless children's TV presenters. 2 years and counting, and still no signs of sleeping like a baby. God, how she hated those newly mums with their 2-month-old full-night sleepers. Gina wondered when and where today's tantrum would be. How far through the day would it be? Would it be at home or when they were out? William's tantrums were one of life's bedrock certainties, but they were not so well calibrated you could set your watch or size your shopping to them. Today, he was at the shopping centre, sprawling, crawling and caterwauling in the aisles. The chopped chip cookie of appeasement had probably postponed the tantrum by 10 minutes, enough to get William past the toy shop, but not enough to have finished shopping for unstained clothes, overseen by posters of angelic identikit toddlers, clean identikit toddlers. He gave his body fully to the tantrum, and now he needed his nappy changed. The look of surprise on his face at freshly realised discomfort every time. If nothing else, it drew the tantrum to a close and gave Gina an exit to search for the toilet that promised facilities for baby changing, yet always disappointed, always left her with the same one. The toilet was multi-purpose and multi-access. It was for those with disabilities, including aged children. Shopping bags carefully propped against one another. Gina and William found the eye of the storm in the ritual of changing. Now it was her turn. She sat down on the toilet seat, looked down at the floor and closed her eyes. A moment of relief. A short moment, but nonetheless a moment. A moment before ka-clunk. First moment. She looked up. There was William. On the concourse. It was busy. He looked back through the open door, with his cherubic come chocolate come get me smile. It was unfortunate that ease of access in meant ease of access out. Able or disabled, old or young. It was unfortunate that ease of access meant the toilet, the door and the concourse all lined up. She could look out at the passers-by just as easily as they were now looking in at her. Second moment. Gina's head drooped. She sighed. She sighed defeat. It was a sound defeat, total and resounding. Third moment. Somehow she now had to recover her dignity from the knickers around her ankles, to recover her son from the concourse filled with passers-by and the now not-so-passing by, to recover her keys, drive home and fight William into bed for a nap. She would accept her defeat, crashed on the couch. She would toast it with tea, or possibly G&T, and doze to the murmur of childless daytime TV.
Mr. Kevlin Henney, ladies and gentlemen. So Kevlin is the founder of the Bristol chapter of the National Flash Fiction Day, which is the 25th of June. It's a Saturday. So if you Google National Flash Fiction Day, look at Bristol, all the events, Kevlin will be there and saying amazing, amazing stories like that. Can we have another round of applause for Kevlin, please? Great, thank you. Our next act is another lovely sort of person I know. It's all great. It's all homely. It's all friendly. Grace Palmer is sort of one of the Bristol novelists, and she also runs an event called Novel Nights, and she will now be reading for you her story, The Weighing Machine. Can you have a big round of applause for Grace Palmer, ladies and gentlemen?
Lovely, thank you. The weighing machine. The weighing machine was a 1950s relic bolted to the platform at Bristol Temple Meads. Its large clock face was as wide as an American groomed on McDonald's. Shona stepped onto the beast, stared at the guts of it. There were intricate steel weights, vast cogs, and a spiked ratchet with the invitation, "Weigh me," in a seductive font. She looked behind her. No one watching. Too busy on mobile phones or fingering their skinny lattes. Up she climbed, popped in 20p, closed her eyes for a second, and opened them to see 14 stone? That must be wrong. She looked down at her body in confusion. Gone were her Converses, her skinny jeans, and a faded T-shirt. She pulled at the bulky fabric of a dress in a tomato print flowing from her waist. There was no tattoo snaking around her thumb or a nose ring. Her faux leather satchel had been replaced with a navy clutch bag. Inside, she found a handkerchief, a clasp purse, and a heavy coin she didn't recognise with a younger version of the Queen's head on it. It read 5 shillings. "It's a dream, a game." "Steady, miss," a guard said, as she teetered off the machine in her unfamiliar court shoes. Panicking, she looked round at the commuters. The men were wearing suits and ties, smoking pipes, for heaven's sake, and the women had cinched-in dresses, permed hair, and lipsticks in the same shade of red. She patted her own hair. Yes, that too. It sat on her head like a bored poodle. A steam train coughed and spluttered into the station with a hiss of brakes and smatter of coal motes. "Which train is this?" she asked the guard. 8:20 to London, miss, stopping at Bath Spa, Chippenham and Swindon." This was her normal route. Her ticket was still in a palm of her hand. This too had changed. It was smaller, and on a coarse buff paper, the words "return" were printed. Return, yes, but she needed to go somewhere first. Work, perhaps? Her office was in a converted Georgian building in the heart of Bath. She could see what it used to be like. As the train lay panting, out came a stream of folk in period costume. She was on a film set. This was a theatre festival or a virtual reality playground. Any of these were plausible. Well, Shona, she thought, you've got a return ticket. Let's get on with the ride. Stepping onto the train, she walked down a narrow corridor and entered the first compartment she came to. Bench seats faced one another. There were blue velour seats, wood panelling and string-bottomed luggage racks overhead. There was a man in situ, hidden behind a broadsheet newspaper. His brogue's shoes were swinging over crossed legs. The train lurched off with a groan. There was no choice but to sit opposite the man. She sat, stiff-backed, staring out the window, looking at the space where the high-rise offices next to Temple Meads should be. A factory belched out steam. Men in caps filed into it, and women in headscarves pushed huge prams. This was not virtual reality. She was going mad in a cliched adventure. Mm-hmm, said the man, dismantling his newspaper. She saw that the date was 1952. Panic swelled. The world fell away. It was as if she was looking at him through badly focused binoculars. My dear, are you unwell? You look terribly green. She could be trapped here forever in the wrong place, the wrong time. I'm sorry, it's just... The words weren't there. He got up and opened a window flap. Fresh air, do you the world of good. He offered his hand. Peter White, at your service. And you are... Shona White. 3 things happened at once as their hands touched. A fizz of electricity sparked between them. Her train ticket fluttered to the floor, and she saw that it no longer read return, but single.
Temple Meads is a very magical place. I must admit that when I came on the train over to Bath Spa this evening, it's quite crowded, so I sat next to another gentleman who was also wearing a black suit and was also quite tall with stubble. And we struck up a conversation, and I said, so what's your name? And he said, Tom Parker. And I couldn't believe it. I was beside myself. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, sort of Grace Palmer runs an event called Novel Nights, where there's some amazing authors and publishers and agents have done Q&As, as well as having local novelists read opening chapters of their book. It's a fantastic event, and the next one is on Thursday, the 16th of June, and it's £5, and it starts at 8 o'clock, great. And it's memoir versus fiction, and it's Babs Horton, I think you've got, who's an award-winning writer. She's absolutely fantastic. So if you can make yourself available, it's at the Strawberry Thief in Bristol City Centre, 8 p.m. on 16th of June. But can we have another applause for Grace Palmer? Okay. So we have one more act for our opening half, and then you can all go and get a drink because it's a bit warm. One other thing I'll just say on that is that the bar shuts after the the break. So if you want to get a drink, get it during the break. The next person that we have is actually one of the Stokescroft writers, part of the people who put on this event, and was very instrumental in putting on tonight. I'm also really pleased that we're here because this is where me and Mark met. Which was about 18 months ago. We were both sort of sat down around there, and I saw this guy perform, and you are in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen, because he is absolutely incredible as a performer. And I was like, I need to know that man. And it's a joy that he's now part of the same writing group as I, and it's a joy that you all get to see him perform now. Can we please have a huge welcome for Mark Rutterford reading Charlie and the Kazoo?
That's the highlight of my night. Okay, so this is called Charlie and the Kazoo. When you get to a certain age and you start a new relationship, it goes without saying there's a bit of baggage. The scars of past breakups, the obsessive-compulsive checking for coffee breath, the children. So when I met Josie and she told me she had a son, I was okay with that. All right, I was shit scared of that, knowing that my emotional development ended at 13. I was concerned that I would quickly be shown up by Charlie. Charlie's on the spectrum, Josie told me. What are you telling me? I asked. He's red and yellow and pink and green. No, he's on the autistic spectrum, she said, looking worried. Well, if it's a spectrum, we're all on it somewhere, I said to reassure her. This earned me a massive hug and a kiss with tongues. It was all going to be fine. Charlie was 14, and he'd been on his own with his mum since the age of 3. They were indivisible, conjoined, an alloy. It was lovely, but a pretty exclusive club as far as Charlie was concerned. When we met, he looked at me with suspicion. When I first stayed over, Charlie pooed in my shoes. And when I moved in, Charlie stopped speaking, and for a week he stopped eating too. It was a pretty tough week. Charlie was isolated, Josie was frantic, and I seemed to be the underlying cause. I tried to win him round without being overtly creepy about wanting to be liked. Most of all, I didn't want what was now quite obviously an LOVE affair to falter on the rocks of an unhappy child. Oh, I forgave the hate in Charlie's eyes. It was easy. He was hurting. But that and his mother's worry was hard. In all of this, Charlie never spoke to me directly. Not once. That was hardest of all. If I was lucky, I might be referred to in a whiny teenage grump as him. To avoid speaking to me, even referring to me, Charlie communicated with this, his kazoo. When I entered the room, he did a laughing policeman laugh through the thing to taunt me. If I cuddled up with Josie on the sofa, he hummed the theme tune from Psycho and made stabbing movements with his hands. But it wasn't all bad. Charlie loved his football, playing and watching. And despite his seething resentment of my presence, even Charlie had to admit I was better for a kick around than his mum. I made sure to let Charlie win almost all the tackles and score the most spectacular goals. But this had to be on Charlie's terms, of course. So when he wanted me to play football with him, Charlie didn't ask. Oh no, there was an unspoken code. This was okay, acceptance of a sort, but, well, more than once Charlie crept into our bedroom, put the kazoo to my ear and blasted out the Match of the Day theme tune at me at 6 a.m. I developed a kind of kazoo shell shock, a nervous twitch. I even had to stop eating Walker's crisps. One Sunday afternoon, after a long game and a big lunch, Charlie sparked out on the sofa. Josie was wonderfully frisky and started to bite my neck, knowing what that did to me. We kissed like teenagers in front of sleeping grandparents, then crept upstairs for a special cuddle. In the bedroom, Josie tore at my shirt and I ripped off her jeans. It felt illicit, and like most illicit things, the effect was amplified as a result. There was so much passion. We were on fire, so much so that my cries of ecstasy were muted by Josie's hand over my mouth. And in the moment, as we were, neither of us had noticed Charlie sneak into the room until he played this tune. "Get out!" I shouted, and chased Charlie down the stairs. He was wearing trainers, and I didn't stop to put any clothes on, so I slipped on a stair, banged my head, and bounced down the last few to the landing. As I lay there moaning with the pain and certain I'd never have sex again, Charlie opened the door onto the street, stood behind it, and played this. Mrs. Jones from number 23 hasn't looked me in the eye since. There were just 2 more tunes of significance. The first when I noticed Charlie had bruises on his arms, and he was very reluctant to show them to me or his mum. After weeks of drawing a blank, I followed him to school and saw he was ambushed by 2 lads, bigger and nastier than he was. As they dragged Charlie to the floor and took his dinner money, I flipped. I could have been arrested, but I became so much of a nutter, I think the bullies daren't report it. I ran across the road, dragged each of the boys by the back of their school blazers, and held them up against the wall. With language a Liverpool docker would have been ashamed of, I threatened to do serious harm if they ever messed with Charlie again. I said I would be watching. I said I would know, and I said, as you do, that I knew where they lived. It worked. And as Charlie and I turned the corner to school, he looked at me with a nod of appreciation. Then he got out his kazoo and played the theme tune from The Great Escape. His eyes were laughing. Mine had a piece of dirt in them. Both of them, you understand? That was a breakthrough for us. There were ups and downs to come, of course, but there'll be more, I have no doubt. But about a year later, just last weekend, in fact, Charlie walked his mother down the aisle to meet me. The tune was traditional, but the organist wasn't required. Everyone in the congregation played along like this.
our first half, ladies and gentlemen. Wasn't that great? Yes! Good cheer for all of our acts. So, we're about 22. I'm going to give you till 9 for the bar. So, really, when you think about this, that gives you 15 minutes because you're going to shuffle back to your seats and it's going to take time. So, you've got 20 minutes, really 15. So, hurry up, get some drinks, and then we've got an amazing second half lined up for you. But can we just have one more applause for all of our first half acts, please? Yes. Thank you very much. See you at the bar. Anyway, hello. Hey, second half. Woo! We have some sad news. The bar is now shut. I know. All right. So hopefully you're drunk or on the way of getting drunk because my interlinks aren't getting any better. But so yes, we've got we've had a great first act. We've got a really nice, strong second act. Very pleased with the people that we've got. The next one is a performer I don't know particularly well, but I became Facebook friends today. Yay! So I started a beautiful friendship. And she'll be performing her story, The Land of the Pretty. Please give a warm welcome to Anita MacCallum, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you a story. Are you ready? You ready? Yes. It's called In the Land of the Pretty. When Sadie was 5 years old, she loved to bake. She would sit on the edge of the kitchen counter and beg her mother to let her stir or lick or touch or mix or crack or hold or rest her finger in flour, tenderly caressing the softness. Softness that was softer than a kitten, softer than feathers in a bed, softer than a softy, fluffy white cloud. The soothing, soft softness of softy flour. Sadie would watch the cracking of eggs, bright yellow yolks like eyes watching her from the bowl, or sugar crystals catching rainbows in the sunlight. Who needed radio or TV when magic happened in that kitchen every single day? Sadie would place a wish in the bowl of any cake that her mother's hand mixed, and the wish would be to eat cake every day, every single day, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And this was fine, and this was good, and this was right, until she was 7. When you were 7, things change. The world is no longer one big kaleidoscope swishing with colour. It has edges and shadows and passwords and keys. When she was 7, Sadie's friends told her she was far too roundy and fatty and wobbly to be a pretty girl. They all said this, but her friend Lorna later said it the loudest. Lorna later loved coming round to Sadie's house to watch and take and talk and read a list of how to be. Lorna, who had rules of how tall you could be, or what you could say, or what you could wear, or how straight your hair must be, which is actually very straight and only blonde. Only blonde hair really counts in the land of the pretty. In the land of the pretty, Lorna says, Sadie's not allowed in. Lorna says, in the land of the pretty and the land of the good, here Lorna later stood. With long blonde hair and eyes of blue, I have complete control over you. Then she laughs like a witch from a dark and dusty fairy tale book. Sadie, she liked to stroke Lorna's soft blonde hair, and she liked Lorna's quick, tight smile that cracked open into a belly laugh, big enough to fill a bucket laugh. So Sadie did what she was told, and the cake mixing and the flower fondling stopped in a split second, like time stood still. And that was all yesterday. And this was today. And today was polishing and pleasing and cleaning and not knowing or caring about anything except Lorna Later's smile and her special cracking open of the secrets. Secrets like, did you know Tina Thompson always stuffs socks down her bra? Or secrets like, I saw David Dogood naked in his window and his willy is this big. That's a good one. Or secrets that were so warm and rich that they were better than freshly baked donuts. And Lorna stuffed those secrets into Sadie until Sadie was so big and fit to burst that there was no fitting through the door of the land of the pretty. Sadie kept all the secrets inside, like you're supposed to do with secrets. And she cried and she howled and she clawed at the solid oak door, and she could hear sounds of girls doing hairbrushing and holding their breath, nip and tucks, growling stomachs, and the pages of glossy magazines turning. The sounds pushed themselves through the keyhole, and Sadie put her mouth against a tiny opening and sucked them deep inside her. All those sounds mingled and mushed in her tummy with her secrets until she felt a bit sick. And that was almost all fine, and that was almost all good, until Sadie turned 10. And on that day, Sadie's eyes fell upon the glint and flash of the silver scissors her mother kept in the sewing box. She slipped them into her pocket, and for the first time in a long time, a smile slyly crept up the side of her face, all lopsided and lollopy. Sadie waddled to the edge of the land of the pretty, and she knocked on the door. Lorna's voice squealed through. Who is it? It's Sadie. Ah, good, you know the song, sing it. In the land of the pretty and the land of the good, there Queen Lorna Later stood with her long blonde hair and her eyes of blue. She has complete control of you. Very good. Now, have you bought the cake? Yes. Sadie's small sausage fingers held 2 blue cupcakes firmly in the palm of her hand. You know, I'm just trying to help you, don't you, Sadie? You really must lose weight. I don't think I need to, though. Sadie boldly burst the words into the door. I like me, just the way I am. And just as Sadie knew she would, Lorna flicked and clicked open the door and pierced her with her ice blue eyes. She stared at her long and hard, slapped back her head and laughed, splitting open the sky. Quick as a flash, Sadie reached forward, and with a silver glint in the air, she snipped and snatched with her mother's scissors, and she cut the laugh clean out of Lorna's mouth. Lorna stood still with her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, and rain pouring down inside her. She filled up like a goldfish bowl, all round and watery. She'd lost her sound, and with no sound there could be no bossing, and with no bossing there can be no queen. Sadie kicked open the door and strode right into the land of the pretty. Her eyes sprang out and bounced around at the sight of the chaos lying in pointed piles. There were headless bodies with perfect breasts, blonde-haired faces with bright red lips, flat tummies lying lonely. There were perfect nails on perfect hands lying limp in a pile at the edge of some sand, all pieces of puzzles waiting to be matched up with the right bits. Discarded body parts, left unseen by eyes that look in mirrors and pick and prize and preen. Eyes of girls who belong to the queen. Ice eyes that have sent pieces of their own bodies to this place. Sadie cast her gaze across the floor as understanding dropped, a thunderclap into her head. The land of the pretty is made from pretty broken bits, from pretty broken people. Unwanted imagined bulges hidden under baggy jumpers start here. Smashed mirrors start here. Puke-filled toilets start here. And locked bathroom doors start right here and here and here. And this was where it all began. Seeds planted in this land grew like poisoned ivy. Sadie rummaged through the piles of long legs, bits of brain and hunks of hair, and buried deep at the bottom of it all lay a pouch of crumpled colour, a teeny flap of self-esteem. She held it close to her face and rubbed against the velvety redness of it, then swallowed it deep and whole and went right on back to yesterday, where she carried on baking and making and loving all the things she had around her. She carried on stirring or licking or touching or mixing or cracking or holding, or resting her fingers in the softy soft flour. And she grew taller and wiser and older. And each time she baked a cake, she would place a wish in the centre of the bowl, and her wish would be to eat cake every single day, forever and ever and ever. Big gooey chocolate cake, vanilla sponge with raspberry jam. You like that, don't you? Lemon drizzle, or carrot cake with cinnamon eaten warm. Syrupy flapjack, lime cheesecake with a ginger biscuit base. She would bake and make and chomp and chew and eat them all. And that was fine and good and right until she was 42. And when she was 42, she knew she was big and bold and beautiful, and she didn't give a flying fuck what other people thought anymore anyway.
Anita MacCallum, everyone, give another cheer. Yeah, so I write as a form of therapy too, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of us need it more than others, but our next act is a lovely gentleman from Bristol Writers Group. Yes. Because it's not like all their names are really similar, but they're completely different entities, and it's not like that's really difficult to remember. So that's fine, great. So your Gavin Watkins will be reading How I Didn't Break America. So can everyone give a huge cheer for Gavin, ladies and gentlemen?
That's perfect, okay? Yep. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to read out for you a bit of anti-travel writing, as I like to term it. It's, yeah, well, let's get on with it. It's called How I Didn't Break America. My sister Sophia had wanted to visit New York for ages. She wanted to touch the Statue of Liberty and see the city from the top of the Empire State Building. I was more interested in some small art galleries and to read at an open mic night. Then I could tell people I was an international performer. I'd done plenty of readings around Bristol, and once at a small music festival, but I had my eyes set on the big one. To go down well in the Big Apple would be totally hardcore. I could say I'd broken America, only I was concerned that a US audience wouldn't understand my poems. Did they know what an ASBO was? Did books by Andy McNabb, Ian McEwan, or Will Self sell here? Did they know who Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris were? Maybe my poems were too British, but poetry lovers are a sophisticated bunch. They're bound to understand. So, what kind of poetry is it? The girl with the sign-up sheet asked. Yeah, it's like, you know, kind of raw, low-level stuff, I explained. Okay, but this is a family-orientated Christian event. That's cool. I can work with that, I said, trying to remember if the poems would still work without all the swearing and masturbation references. I saw her eyes flick over my tattooed arms. She was clean, university age, good girl, plain orange sweatshirt and blue jeans that had definitely been ironed. At least I was wearing my Boards of Canada t-shirt and not the Bad Religion one with the inverted crucifix on the front. Okay, well, find a seat. We're starting in a minute, she said. Gav, there's no bloody bar, my sister Sophia hissed. And it's your round. She was right. 2 kids behind a trestle table at the side of the room were pouring orange squash into plastic glasses. Now, I do like reading in public, but a couple of pints of Cheddar Valley or Old Rosy cider is usually appreciated to kind of, get me in the mood for doing this sort of stuff. Maybe they're making cocktails or something, I replied. Orange squash and rum? Really, Gav? It's fine. I'll do my 2 best poems, and then we'll find a proper bar. Look, I promised the Bristol Writers Group I was going to do a reading while in New York. I can't back out now. The first act put down their guitars and bowed to a rapturous applause of what I considered to be a fairly lame rendition of Kumbaya. Sophia tugged my arm. Gav, this isn't right. Let's go before they try and convert us. It's cool. I'll be on soon. I'll read my poems, then we'll do a run at half-time, yeah? The girl who had signed me was on the stage, and now, all the way from England, Gavin Watkins will read some poems. Wish me luck, I whispered to Sophia. You'll need them, Sophia replied as I made my way to the front. I'm actually Welsh, I said when the courtesy applause had died down. Some of you may have seen clips of me reading on YouTube. Not the ones with a donkey. Ignore those. It was a very dark farmyard. I thought it was a sheep. Silence. Tough crowd tonight. They clearly didn't enjoy jokes about Welsh sheep shagging. At the back of the room, Sophia was putting her coat on. I cleared my throat and started to read from my best poem, Literary Lout. Yeah, he's a literary lout, because he'll tell you what the fuck Dickens is about. There was a scraping of chairs. And when he's got a few pints inside, a hand fell over the microphone. I think you'd better leave, the girl who had signed me up said. Behind her, 2 boys twice her size approached the stage. They did not look amused. But I've only just started. At least let me finish my poem. We don't like that sort of language here. Oh, fuck, sorry, One of the boys took my arm. Please, let me finish. I grabbed the microphone. It fell to the stage and hit the ground with an almighty clap from the speakers. The feedback howled. Like a lamb pinned to the sacrificial altar of some satanic ritual. It's an appropriate metaphor, I think. The 2 boys bundled me off the stage. As I passed through the audience, some of them held up crucifixes as if to repel me. Sophia was waiting for me outside with my bag and my coat. Let's find a bar, Sophia said. We stopped at the first place we came to. They didn't have any cider, but it would have to do. At least you got to read a couple of lines, Sophia said. Yeah. Look at it this way, she continued. Neither Robbie Williams nor Kylie have managed to break America, not even when they dueted on Kids. I thought about it. 3 lines of poetry was better than nothing. Yeah, cheers, Sophia, you're right. Robbie and Kylie haven't really done any better than me, have they? Thank you.
God bless you, Gav. As a wise man once said, I write as a form of therapy too, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Gav has actually got his book, The Ultimate Career Move, with him this evening. It's published by Tangent Books. It usually retails at $7.99, but for the very special price tonight, he is selling it at £8 because he doesn't have any change. So you can see him in the bar. He has a very large beard. Our next group is Bristol Women's Writers. They're getting ready. This is good. Interesting thing here, we actually have Jean Burnett reading the story by Helen Child. It's a real collaborative effort. Jean will be reading Heather's story, Hell Goes into Administration. So can everyone give a huge applause for Jean Burnett reading Heather Child.
Right down, I think, yeah.
Head the child, by the way, the author is over in that corner there. Hell goes into administration from Archangel Tribune. Administrators were called in on Thursday after Hell announced it had become insolvent. It's a complete mystery how this could have happened, given the huge profits Hell has posted over the last few centuries, said Meg Slather, one of two administrators called in to oversee the bankruptcy. It appears that the piles of wealth had been eaten into, sometimes literally, by company executives who carved out vast salaries and bonuses for themselves. CEO Satan was paid the equivalent of £76 million, and Mephistopheles, head of HR, took home £50 million. Both of these sums were dwarfed, however, by the bonus paid to financial director Mammon. On top of his £666 million salary, he was given 1,000 golden cattle, all the diamonds in Africa, and a platinum toaster. When questioned about this outflow of assets to Mammon, Satan explained, "It's absolutely necessary. Hoarding wealth is his only pleasure in life." When asked what measures he had taken to try to save the company, Satan outlined a strategy of cuts. However, few of these were financial. The press conference quickly descended into a heated debate, with Satan trying to reassure the company's creditors. His tiny PR demons did little to support his position. They ignored all questions, pointing and laughing at the assembled press corps. Satan stated that bankruptcy was inevitable due to the pressures of a growing world population. Despite our best efforts, it has grown inexorably since we first went into business. He also blamed the rising cost of Hell's utility bills. We have to keep the place well heated, although we have tried to save energy in other areas. For people whose needs assessments include boiling in oil, we have switched to recycled cooking oil. We've replaced light bulbs with LEDs and used low-energy nipple electrodes. We now spit roast Hitler over a wood-burning stove, but it's not enough. Satan faces further questions about how the board of directors are walking off with so much of the remaining capital. But several journalists have already been savaged by his three-headed Rottweiler, Cerberus, whose master promises to rain sulphur and brimstone upon any who approach his Suffolk mansion. This news comes in the wake of rumours that Heaven too is considering closing its gates, following cuts to its funding streams. It's currently working with a skeleton staff, which has had a severe impact on service quality, and is hoping to find a solution to the cash flow crisis. This hiatus already means that people are having to spend longer in purgatory, where Heaven had previously promised to cut waiting lists. Heaven's CEO was not available for comment, but Angela Zephyr, the charity's head of delight, said things are difficult here. Many of the angels are using their own clouds to get around. Our laundry bill is sky high, and we're making the robes last for ages. Things are starting to be holy in all the wrong ways. The media first learned of Heaven's financial difficulties when the pearly gates went up for auction at Sotheby's last year. The gates have now been replaced with turnstiles, similar to those in railway stations. Fulfilling people's fantasies does not come cheap, said Miss Zephyr. The cost of keeping the fountains running with wine alone cost millions. Austerity measures have included closing Heaven to pets, which it was previously able to do. Following the announcement from Hell, there has already been talk of pooling resources into a coalition-style afterlife, combining Hell and Heaven as a new form of community-led third circle provider. Management structure would be dramatically reduced,
with more power in the hands of the actual angels and demons delivering the service. One demon we spoke to seemed delighted at the suggestion. "Why wouldn't I be?" he said. "It's the worst idea I've heard since time began." In the meantime, the public have already begun to voice concerns at the idea of Hell's residents being reintegrated into the community. "It's a lottery," said one current Hell resident, who then added, "But if it gets this piranha off my genitals, I'm happy."
Thank you, Jean. You know, I actually remember when Hell went into administration. I actually worked there at the time, and it was dark days. I remember when the devil brought me into his office and said, "Tom, I write as a form of therapy too, and there's nothing wrong with that." Big hand for Jean Bennett performing Heather Child's story. I can get my words out. I've not been drinking. So they're both part of Bristol Women's Writers, who have is it a bi-monthly event, the Writers Unchanged, or is it just every... 4 times a year, so quarterly. And they have an event. Their next one is 4 weeks today. It's Sunday the 3rd of July at the South Bank Club in Bristol. It's £5. It starts at 6:30, ends at 8:30. I'm getting better at remembering stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's I'm surprised. Thank you. That's basically, I'm not listening to any of these stories, so I have no idea what went on. Our next act has completely escaped my mind. I'm going to have to look at. I was overconfident. No, I remembered. We're in. Okay. So, it's glorious. Thank you, Brain. This is really good comedy. Also, he needs time to get up. So if we sort of say, Simon, you can start walking now. You're there. You know, he's got a long run up. Simon Waltho is a fantastic Bristolian performer. He will be performing his story. Oh no, it's gone again. Damn me brain. Okay, all right, good. Okay, anyway, Simon Waltho, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. This is a fragment from a much longer story. It occurs to me that I read all the best bits of it last time I did Talking Tales, so if you were there and you liked that, get ready for some mild disappointment. Has anyone out there ever worked in a call centre? I am so very, very sorry. I have too. It was awful. This is called Fear and Loathing in the Contact Centre. The advert for the job at the contact centre had promised a role that was varied, interesting, challenging, and with many opportunities to progress in an environment offering the highest levels of customer service possible on behalf of our client. Every single word of this description was true. There really were an astonishing variety of ways in which their client, a market-leading tabloid newspaper, managed to screw over their readers who would themselves, on occasion, offer up a truly fascinating array of gripes. If you knew better than to answer the phone with "what a guan, blood," and demonstrated even once that you need to type "should've" rather than "should've" in an email, you would be marked out as promotion material and whisked swiftly upwards from the humble rank of customer service agent to the heady heights of customer complaint analyst, the job title in which I currently happen to rejoice. And we really did, given the environment, offer the highest levels of customer service possible, which was, of course, close to none at all. Agents were not there to admit to the client's mistakes, nor did they have any appreciable way of taking ownership of customers' complaints. Their job was, at root, to be shouted at for decisions other people had taken by a readership actively courted from those paranoid, reactionary, self-righteous, and entitled segment of the population. The company's hope that was, having been allocated their 2 minutes hate, most customers would feel sufficiently unburdened, hang up, go away, and carry on buying the paper anyway. As the volume of repeat callers who would ring week in, week out to complain about different issues testified, this was, as it turned out, a highly effective business tactic. Agents were paid minimum wage and worked 45-hour weeks, and after a little while, they barely ever cried anymore at all. Particularly vociferous complainants, however, especially those who threatened to take their complaint to social media, were passed through to the analysts, who at least had some discretion to offer small inducements that might avert such a disaster. As to the complaints themselves, they were sometimes, however made, not entirely without merit. True, on the infrequent occasions customers called in about the actual content of the rag, they tended to approach it from an angle so bizarre as to be quite breathtakingly inventive. On the day every other paper in the world had led with news of a drone strike accidentally killing 27 civilians at a wedding party in Afghanistan, for example, our client had led with an intrusive piece on the unhappy home life of the parents of a sex worker brutally strangled 6 weeks before. The result of this was my having to attempt to placate a reader absolutely incensed, not by the editorial decision over the lead story, nor by the lurid prurience of the article itself, but by the paper referring to the woman's murderer as a ripper. He was not a ripper, goddammit, he was a strangler. And he was probably deriving some kind of sick satisfaction from seeing himself described in a quality newspaper as such. After 45 minutes, I ended up getting him to go away by giving him a free 12-month subscription. By far the biggest source of complaints, however, were the paper's promotional campaigns. These ran frequently, at least once a month, with headlines so misleading and terms and conditions so obtuse, it was virtually impossible for anyone buying the paper on the strength of the promotion to claim what was being offered. Said headlines, terms and conditions were carefully worded by a specialised team who worked in a shiny, spacious office in central London, and, whispers had it, were paid so well they could actually sleep at night. The times this team failed to make a promotion absolutely watertight to any challenge constituted those rare occasions on which the agents were given some very limited leeway to accept that the client may have made an unfortunate oversight and to offer something to the customer as a token of their regret for having done so. The previous week had seen one of those rare occasions. Readers, on jumping through a series of increasingly inconvenient hoops, had been offered the chance to purchase an exclusive paperback edition of a popular new novel. Said novel being particularly sought after at the time, a higher than usual number of customers had jumped through those hoops and paid for their books, which led to something of a problem when it emerged that somehow no one had noticed that production of the exclusive paperback run had been cancelled by the publisher, and what the customers had paid for didn't actually exist. This was a cock-up so obvious that the client had had little choice but to swallow the loss and offer each customer a copy of the hardback version of the novel for the price already paid. In an astonishing show of generosity, they had also agreed to waive the postage costs, which had been wildly inflated so as to ensure a healthy profit. This was such an obviously reasonable offer that not one single complainant had been passed beyond agent level. Until that morning. The complainant was put through to me by Alexandra. I liked Alexandra. Not like that, you understand. I liked Alexandra because, despite everything her job entailed, she somehow retained a serene aura of geniality that made being around her feel like basking in the presence of a diminutive Polish bodhisattva, albeit a diminutive Polish bodhisattva, wearing gargantuan quantities of eyeliner and with leopard paws tattooed on her breasts. Really, not like that, I swear. As Alexandra patched the call through to my phone, she was sobbing. I missed the name of the complainant she had put through. He had a voice I automatically associated with a retired colonel living somewhere in the home counties. I didn't really pay much attention for the first 5 minutes or so. I'd found it was generally easier to let the customer blow off some steam. Unfortunately, I was distracted by the sight of Alexandra shakily snuffling her way across the office to the break room and missed how insulted he'd somehow been by the offer our client was making to him. So, when he gave me pause to reply and I began to emolliently roll out just what a generous settlement this was in my very best RP, he cut me off almost straight away. "Weren't you listening, man? That's completely unacceptable. Completely. I want what I paid for." Sir, you do understand that what you paid for doesn't and never will exist, and that what we're offering instead is of a significantly higher... Not to me, it bloody isn't. Principle of the damn thing. You'd better find a way to make it happen. Sir, I really can't just make the publisher... I want this call paid for too. It was a free phone number. And something for the distress this has caused. £50 should be about right. For one of very few times in my life, I was literally struck dumb. He took this as an opportunity to continue. And I have to say, given the good work your investigative chaps did highlighting how many bloody Eastern Europeans are over here taking jobs from decent English sorts and scrounging bloody benefits, he wasn't the only one who'd missed the inherent contradiction in that particular piece, which had been the paper's lead the day after 73 migrant workers had suffocated to death in the back of a lorry somewhere near Antwerp. How disappointing it was to have to deal with that useless Polish bint before I got put through to you. I looked over at Alexandra in the break room. She was sniffling rather than sobbing now, dabbing at the eyeliner running down her cheeks with a tatty scrap of tissue. Sometimes, something just snaps, doesn't it? Sir, I began. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. And now you're going to listen to me. You'll notice I haven't once raised my voice. And I'm pleased that I haven't. And I won't. Because it means that, in a few moments, when I call you a bellend, you'll know it's not in anger. You'll know it's because you are, indeed, a bellend. What did you call me? I haven't actually called you anything yet, sir, but now I will. You, sir, are a fucking bellend. That's not my opinion. In all honesty, it's closer to a statement of objectively verifiable scientific fact. How dare you? Dare, sir? There's no daring involved. After all, it's a truth universally acknowledged that you are a bellend. Stop saying that. I would, sir, but frankly it's rather hard to. I'm finding it tremendously amusing. Now listen here. I'll speak to your manager about this. I'll put it in writing. I'll put it on Twitter. Since our phones are automatically monitored to summon a senior company manager to oversee the call as soon as that word is uttered, I knew I had 5 minutes at most to wrap this up. I didn't need them. You're free to do so, sir, but I'm afraid you're assuming that I care about, firstly, my manager, or indeed anyone else's opinion, and or, secondly, my job. And at the moment, those may not be safe assumptions for you to make. Also, yes, you're a fucking cunt. I placed the handset gently down in its cradle, took a few moments to close down my computer, and stood up from the desk. Smiling, I picked up my bag, walked over to the break room, and gave Alexandra a hug and a fresh tissue. I did not look at her tattoos, although a horrid little part of me, the part that I always feared was perhaps the real one, the part that still expected a biscuit for behaving towards people the way we should, might have felt entitled to. I headed out of the office onto cobblestone slicked by light early summer rain. There had to be better ways of making a living. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Go. We're not all watching. Okay, Simon Waltho, ladies and gentlemen. I love stories like that. I really love stories like that because it's a form of wish fulfillment. And of course, wish fulfillment is a form of therapy. And I like to write as a form of therapy too. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so we're now down to our final act. Or celebrate, celebrate, go, I went one way, you went the other, that's why I'm not very good. But you're in for a treat. They're part of the Stokes-Croft writers. Now, I think there's two things that might heighten the enjoyment here. One is an understanding of what a quokka is, and a quokka is, I do know what a quokka is. I kind of prepped for this because I knew you were doing the story, Mel. So a quokka is a small marsupial that is very, very cute. And it has a very smiley face, and lots of people take selfies with quokkas because they're so adorable. That's knowledge item number one. The second item that will really enhance the whole, just have it in the back of your mind as this whole thing unravels. My mother's in the audience. Now, if you didn't have therapy before, be prepared for Mel Ciavucco and Christopher Fielden performing Zombies on a Boat, ladies and gentlemen. You look lovely.
Oh, thank you. You did your research. I'm impressed. Right. Thank you, Tom, and thank you for coming. This is so exciting. The story's been awesome, and now there's this. So this is Zombies on a Boat. To summarise today's class, some simple do's and don'ts. My tutor's arm wobbles as she writes her list on the blackboard. Her hair is the colour things go when they've accidentally had bleach spilt on them, and she's wearing an orange dress over trousers. I can't stand her. Why the fuck am I doing this stupid writing course? Remember, she continues, keep those sentences short and snappy. Beware of cliches and stereotypes, and use your adjectives sparingly. Oh God, will this ever be over? It's only one day a week, but it feels like an eternity. I'm dying for a cigarette. Never, ever, she continues, start sentences with and, so, but, or because. She sets our homework to write a story on the theme of boats to be read aloud in next week's class. I'm definitely not showing up for that. 5 minutes later, I'm outside, sucking legally on a cigarette. I'll look forward to your masterpiece next week then, Ginger Minge says. I know I shouldn't call her that. I can't bear the thought of her fiery, flapping haven. Whatever, I say. She stops next to me for a moment, clutching a messy pile of papers, her handbag slipping off her shoulder. This isn't school, Zandy. You don't have to be here. We don't need your sorts disrupting us. These people are intellectuals. They're not dropouts who sponge off their mum and dad. I don't have a dad, I interrupt. He's dead. I always love playing the guilt card. She rolls her eyes. I don't have time for this. She trudges away, fumbling for her car keys. I have no intention of wasting your time, I call to her. Maybe I'll write you a story you'll just love. Don't bother, she says, and slams her car door. I walk off grinning to myself as ideas for stories pour into my mind. Maybe I will show up next week after all.
Zombies on a boat, especially for Tom's mum. So, there was once a sleepy little island called Rottnest in Western Australia, and there were some weird little animals which shat a lot called quokkas, which kind of looked as if a kangaroo had shagged a possum. And there was a ferry that took... Sorry, I can't see. Let me go that way. That's better. And there is a ferry that takes all the rich, stupid tourists to and from Rottnest Island. On one day, an English family got on the ferry with their 10-year-old son. It was sunny, obviously. It's always bloody sunny in Australia. The crew were typical loud, young Aussies. They made an announcement to welcome the passengers and set off on their journey. All of a sudden, suddenly, someone saw something brown and furry suddenly running across the floor under a chair, suddenly. The son who had seen it said, "Look, Mum, there's a quokka on the ferry." The mum nodded distantly, whilst a crew person who went to get a broom and it was trying to get it out from under the chair. The quokka suddenly leaped out and snarled at the crew member. There was crusty blood in its fur over its face. The quokka suddenly jumped on the man's face, gnawing at his nose, and everyone started screaming. The man, whose nose was barely hanging on by a thread of skin with blood pouring down his shirt saying "crew," started shaking and grunting, and his eyes bulged so much that eventually they popped out and hung like droopy testicles. Another crew member came along and said, "Aye, g'day, Bruce, you all right, mate?" And in his strong Aussie accent, but Bruce lunged towards the man and tore a chunk off his cheek with his fingernails and then ate it and then licked his lips, sucking up the blood dribbling down his chin and then burped. Then the other crewman started grunting because he too was turning into a zombie, and then he pounced on the dad of the family. "Wait, you can't kill me. I have a family. I have a son," he gurgled as the man pushes a bottle into his throat. He dragged it across the dad's blood went everywhere, and the mum screamed. The kid's eyes widened in the biggest amount of fear he had ever felt. The man cut open the dad's belly and started chewing on his intestines.
Get out of my class, Alexandra, the ginger witch says, not even allowing me to finish it. A few people in the class look as if their cat has just presented them with a dead bird. It's Zandy, I correct her. She looks as if her head might explode. Get out! I grab my coat and bag. My fucking pleasure. At home, my teenage brother Ben is using my laptop again. I glance at the screen expecting to see the usual array of tits and arses, but in fact I realise he's reading my story. Did I give you permission to read that? This is actually pretty funny, he says. I think we should post it online. It's just a stupid story, I shrug. I only wrote it as a joke to piss off my tutor. But there's this website, he says, where people read and they comment on stories, and people have gotten, famous from putting stuff on there. Whatever, I say, padding down my pockets, feeling for my cigarettes. I'm off. Do what you like. Nobody reads the shit on those websites anyway.
"Mummy, what's happening?" the kid cried. Mum just screamed more as she watched the guts of the dad being eaten by the crew member, him umming and ahhing with every mouthful of intestine. The quokkas continued to attack people, and then those people attacked other people, the boat filling with guts and blood, and nobody could escape from the zombies because they were on a boat. Mum, come on, let's hide, the son said. And they ran down the ferry away from the screams and the smell of blood and piss. The boy stopped dead. There was suddenly another quokka, and it was right in front of him, snarling. Mum screamed again. Maybe if we stay really still, he won't see us and he will go on by. The boy was interrupted by the quokka charging at his head and ripping it clean off his shoulders. The quokka smashed the head open on the table and eagerly ate the brains as if he were a starving Ethiopian child. Another quokka suddenly appeared, and they fought over the brains, and eventually they just humped on top of the severed head instead. The mum was frozen in shock, watching the quokkas fuck each other and fuck her son's severed head, and then she puked up, and then the quokkas ate that too.
Hey, Zand, Ben calls as I try to sneak past his room. I need to lie down. 4 pints at lunchtime is never a good idea. What? I groan. You know, I posted your story last week. Loads of people have been reading it, he says. I peer towards the screen, trying to keep my distance from him so he doesn't smell beer on my breath. He'll only run off and tell Mum, and then she won't give me any more money. Ben scrolls down through a long list of comments. Whoa, I said. I never expected to see so many people read it. Budge off it a moment, I need to check my emails. I log in and see an email from the Rottnest Island Authority. I skim through. Seeing your work online, we object to the inaccurate portrayal of quokkas, serious damage to tourism, blah, blah, blah. I delete it, along with the other junk mail, and log out.
So everyone on the boat was going crazy and screaming, all grossly bloody and screaming scarily and terrifyingly, and lots of other words ending in lee. But there was one man who could save them all. He was big and black, and he was on holiday from his work at the NYPD. He was a karate black belt, and he punched and kicked and karate chopped all the zombies and all the zombie quokkas, but they kept getting back up again, because they were zombies, so they couldn't be killed. Then he said in his badass, raspy voice, "Bring it on, you furry motherfuckers." The quokka zombies and the people zombies all attacked him at once, ripping his limbs off his body. A quokka jumped on his groin, tore a hole in his trousers, and started eating his foreskin. Another quokka crawled inside the back of his trousers and started nibbling his ass. The man screamed a lot, and then he stopped, because he was dead. And there was no hope for the rest of them, because the zombies kept eating. The mum watched sobbing, wondering how they could ever get out. Who could possibly save them now? And then I woke up.
Over the next week, I get several more emails from the Rottnest Island Authority. Please remove zombies on a boat immediately. Damaging to Rottnest tourism, will be forced to take legal action, blah, blah, blah. I delete all of them. Then comes the final one. We are now taking legal action. I reply saying, this is ridiculous. You can't sue me over a piece of fiction. Fuck off. I rummaged through my bag looking for my cigarettes, telling myself they can't do fuck all about it. It's just a story, just a joke. I find the cigarettes and lean out of my bedroom window to smoke one, then douse the room with a liberal spray of deodorant. On my return, Mum is sitting at the kitchen table with a letter in front of her. She's going to start ranting, I can tell. Who are the Rottnest Island Authority? She asked. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? She says, flapping the letter around. They're suing us for 50,000 Australian dollars. It looks as if a vein is about to explode in her forehead. What? $50,000, she says, over some story you posted online, apparently. What do you have to say for yourself? The phone rings, Saved by the Bell. We both run for it, but I get there first. Hello? I nod and turn away from Mum's disapproving glare. What? Really? Yeah, okay, cool, count me in. I hang up. Mum stares at me with raised eyebrows. Who is that? I sit down silently at the table, my legs quivering in shock as I try to absorb the words I've just heard. Stop being so melodramatic, Zandy, she says, sitting down next to me. I only wrote it as a joke, I murmur. What? Mum says, tell me. It's just some silly zombie story, I said. I can't believe it. Will you just tell me what this is all about? Mum cries. That was a film producer on the phone, I say, the words barely sounding real. They saw my story online and they want to make it into a film. They've got Samuel L. Jackson in mind to star in it. They want to pay me a lot of money, probably a 6-figure sum, to buy the rights. My God, her jaw drops. You better not be kidding me here. No, Mum, seriously, I'm not. It feels as if my facial muscles have turned to custard. Honestly, Mum asks. Yes, honestly. A grin spreads across her face. They did specify one condition, though, I smile. I have to write a sequel.
Oh, no. We're not done yet, sorry. Zombies on a Boat, Part 2. Attack of the Vampires, also for Tom's mum. And it went dark, and the humans were all dead, and the zombies and quackers ate what was left of the humans, and there was guts and shit everywhere, and the zombies loved it and rolled around in it, and the quackers fucked in it, because that's what they do all the time. Then suddenly a vampire walked in with jet black hair and a sweepy fringe, holding some hair straighteners. He had like fangs and like orangey-coloured eyes and pale skin and all that usual vampire crap. He looked at the zombies who all turned and gasped at exactly the same time, and the quackers even stopped fucking for a moment to look at him. The zombies all jumped on him and started to try and eat him, but he was like, "Duh, I'm undead, you can't eat me, you stupid lame zombies." He flicked his fringe and went off to get his vampire mates, who also had sweepy fringes, but they hadn't heard any of the commotion because they had been busy straightening their hair. They all went to find the PA system to go and put the emo music on. The zombies hated it and hid at the other end of the ferry, and the quackers hated it even more, and their brains exploded, and then the zombies ate the quackers' brains. The vampires had a human girl with them for some strange reason. She was called Ella, and they took it in turns to have sex with her, and she loved it. Then suddenly a werewolf came along. He was still in human form, but they knew he was a werewolf because his jeans were all ripped and he had no t-shirt on and he was like ridiculously muscly and tanned. "Oh, Drake," the slutty human girl said, and ran over to him and pulled down his jeans and started sucking him off. The main vampire guy, by the way, his name was Edwin, started fucking her in the ass at the same time. Sorry, Tom's mum. While Paramore played on the PA. But the zombies had now seen the girl and started trying to eat her, until Drake finally actually turned into a werewolf and ripped all their heads off with his big teeth. But it was too late, because the girl had already been bit by a zombie, and so she started turning into a zombie. But Drake didn't realise she was turning into a zombie and started trying to put his furry dog cock in her zombie mouth. But she bit it off and spat it at Edwin. It was all stroppy because it messed up his hair. Then the werewolves killed the rest of the vampires and the zombies. Finally, they could do the one thing they had actually come to do in the first place: turn off the awful music. The end.
So and when my mum asks what I write, she won't ask that question anymore. I think I kind of need your help now. I have something that I think we all need to say to Mel. Thanks, everyone. Because if writing is a form of therapy, then Mel needs to be the most prolific writer in this room. I think we can all safely agree on that. It has been a fantastic night, but before we finish, a couple of things. One, I would just like you to give a huge round of applause for all of our performers tonight. And some of you have been a bit creative this evening. You're filling out our Finish the Lines, all to receive one of these Talking Tales badges. Yes, I know, that was the appropriate response. So to run through the winners on this, please welcome back to the stage Miss Christy Cluett.
Check out the former teacher. I have marked your homework. Most of you passed, don't worry. But before we go through them, so I've done a winner for each sentence. So there are 3 winners, but let's remind ourselves what's at stake. A limited edition, best thing in the world. People are fighting in the street for selling their firstborn for Talking Tales badge. Okay, starting us off. I thought I saw Banksy, but actually it was just HSBC. Nice. This is when the wit of the crowd really gets going. I thought I saw Banksy, but actually it was Wanksy. Not once, guys, but twice. This one with a little explanatory note, which I like. I thought I saw Banksy, but actually it was Wanksy. Like Banksy, but more masturbatory. In case you didn't get it. But the winner is, because it's weird, I thought I saw Banksy, but actually I did, and he was a mysteriously shaped cucumber with a human nose. So congratulations, whoever that is. If you want to make yourself known to Mel, she'll give you a badge. Second ones. The only real difference between Bristol and Bath is the streets of Bath could be paved in gold, but the folks in Bristol would steal it. Controversial. The only real difference between Bristol and Bath is the quality of the toilet paper. Yeah. The only real difference between Bristol and Bath is the number of opportunities to tell people about your novel. And the winner is, the only real difference between Bristol and Bath is in Bath, the graffiti is 19th century. And last ones. We're clapping. The last time Beryl had a bath, she lost her rubber duck. Oh. The last time Beryl had a bath, she sent out invitations, but nobody came. Gets a bit dark. The last time Beryl had a bath, she melted and the cat licked up the remains. Yes. Gav, nice. The last time Beryl had a bath, she was named Steve. The last time Beryl had a bath, she displaced Iceland. The last time Beryl had a bath, she swore it would be her last. She bathed in petrol and blazed the streets of Bath, arriving in Bristol a mere cinder. Oh. And the winner is, the last time Beryl had a bath, she was able to bring Fred for a good wash, which was the name she had given her amputated leg stump. I liked it. Okay, I'm by myself. Thank you very much. Okay. I just have a few plugs of story things going on in Bath if you are interested. So Story Friday is here at Birdall's Yard on the 17th of June. Starts at 7:30 and the deadline for submissions if you're interested tomorrow. So get writing or just submit your Finish the Lines because they were impeccable. The Bath Speakeasy at the Independent Spirit is on the 28th of July and the deadline says the 9th of July. Did I just say July? Yeah. And then just some thank yous. So thank you very much to John Mark for taking the photos, to the marvellous David Thomas Parker for hosting, to Birdall's Yard and Bath Spa, including Luke Gemmett and Gina Goldfield, and to the Bath Fringe Festival for having us, and to you guys for all coming and all our performers. The next Talking Tales is at 13th of August in Bristol if you'd like to come. But thank you very much.
You have been listening to Talking Tales, the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to tell us what you thought, are interested in performing at an upcoming event, or just want to know when the next event will be held, visit www.stokescroftwriters.com or look up Stokescroft Writers on Facebook or Twitter. Talking Tales is a bi-monthly event held in Bristol, UK. It is organised by Stokescroft Writers and hosted at the Left Bank on Stokescroft. Thanks for listening.